Welcome into the Cris Collinsworth podcast, and we're surrounded by Collinsworths in this one. We have young Jac Collinsworth over there, star of stage, screen, and golf courses around the country here.
Just in Kentucky, as a matter of fact.
Just in Kentucky. Yep. And Seth Galina. Seth, great to have you on the program.
I consider myself a son of yours just by being at the desk. So
I actually pay you more than I do him, so that I understand that. That's very logical. So this is going to probably end up being a little. How long have we spent talking about what we're going to do? No, we haven't at all, right? No, we're just rolling.
This is actually the first time we've talked about what we're going to do.
We're just so. I was going to tell. So Jac, obviously now working for NBC. Was working for ESPN and doing very well, NFL Live, and you were doing all the stuff, and you were perfectly happy. And then NBC ruined it by coming along and deciding that they wanted you for themselves. And since then, you have learned more about more sports, I think, than you ever knew existed.
That's true.
You were NASCAR, Indy 500. Horse racing, Olympics.
Yep.
Have you done rodeo yet? I don't know if you've done rodeo.
No rodeo yet. I'm hoping maybe next year we get around to some rodeo.
Get some rodeo going.
The funny thing is I keep learning the sports by just, I'll pick up the video game. If I need to learn the new drivers or whatever, I download that video game. And then you realize as you get further and further into it, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Chase Elliott, whoever you want to name, Ryan Blaney, what do they do all week long? They're on that iRacing rig playing video games. That's just become the world. That's how they all hang out now. So I'm fitting in with that strategy.
Give them a little rundown of how was my video game style on the NES.
You're good. So I usually play from the hours about midnight to 2 a.m. If I get a day off, and he'll come pop in off the film study at about 12:30 and pick up the sticks, and you usually crash 10 to 12 times.
But usually Jac's coming in about 4 a.m., wakes up the dog, who wakes up me. Now he's got to go outside and pee. And that's how our life is run.
The lucky thing about having me on the podcast is that I am a licensed therapist. So we can handle this right now. If you guys want to, I'll just lean back. You guys can.
Are you actually licensed therapist?
I want you to quit doing football and just walk upstairs and help the sickos up there in the PFF world.
I'm one of the sickos. That's the problem.
This place. How would you describe this place? Like you until recently, you didn't like to hang out here. You preferred to be in Iceland or wherever you live. And
where do you live?
I live in Canada. I live in beautiful Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
I can understand that.
It's a great city. It gets quite cold in certain parts of the year. In fact, most of the year it gets quite cold. But no, here it's a little wild. You got a bunch of wild boys upstairs there.
It is.
It's a little.
It's a frat house.
It's a bit of a frat house.
It's a frat house, and so if you like being in a fraternity, you would like working for PFF too.
So how did PFF find you?
So I was doing freelance writing mostly about LSU. So I was born in New Orleans. My parents lived there for a few years, and they're from Montreal. They moved to New Orleans for a few years. My dad taught at Tulane. So I grew up as a Saints and, unfortunately, not a Tulane fan, but a Saints and an LSU fan. So when I started writing about football, I wrote about my favorite football team, the LSU Tigers. And then, I don't know if you guys know this, but in 2019, they won the national title. And
I heard that. That's right. I got a quarterback out of it.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
And so, I think a lot of people just wanted to read what I was saying about LSU at that time. And our friend Austin Gale said, "Hey, you want to come work for PFF?"
Now, did you coach for a period of time?
I coached. I don't want to get into the school system in Quebec because it's a little different. But I coached post-secondary, let's say, for about 8 years, mostly quarterbacks and a little bit of linebacker. I'm the linebackers who I coached in 2018 are still reeling from me having coached them, but yeah.
Seth's really good. I mean, as far as his articles and the things he writes about the details of defenses, I'm like, I was having to explain cover 3 seam to me when we sat down here. I was like, what is that anyway here? So I always like to start off a little bit, just give a little rundown because people don't always know about PFF.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who know about PFF, like in Pittsburgh, where I'm going to be going this week, that are going to be abusing me for some of the grades they have right now. But that's all right. I'm willing to take the heat for all you guys. No problem at all. But, I like to break it down. So if you've never been on PFF, you should go on and check some, because this is a small sampling of what is available, right? So player, PFF team of the week, recaps, whatever for offense. Player of the week for offense, Lamar, right? Lamar was unbelievable. I mean, just nothing until it mattered, fumbled on the goal line, and then just went berserk. I mean, it was like the Colts, like they might as well have just not even got on the field, and at least their offense might have gotten the ball back and with a chance to win.
He's done it twice. Like, think back to Kansas City. They could very easily be 2-3 right now, and I know well because I picked the Chiefs in that game. But he's done it twice. Like, they could just this whole year to me could be very different if it weren't for superhero fourth quarters from Lamar Jackson, and that's what he's done. And now he's an MVP candidate, but he could very easily be 2-3 and not looking at a $200 million contract.
And the funniest part of the whole thing is this guy's his own agent, right? Which you go, that's the dumbest thing. You should never be your own agent because it's never going to work out and you're going to feel the pressure. And I tweeted out the other day, I was like, he's his own agent, and he just made his client a whole bunch of money last night. And because, right? I mean, those are the kind of games you go, all right, I'm willing to pay $45 million for that.
Yeah.
And like we talk about Lamar for so long being like, okay, well, if they're winning and they can run the ball, then everything's going to be good. But what happens when they have to throw, when they're down in games and they have to throw the ball?
For sure.
Well, they went into 11 personnel. They went 3 receivers, a tight end, spread formations. And he threw the ball as good as anyone, like as good as any quarterback in the league right now. So that to me was like the big thing was like, hey, I can do everything now. I'm not just put 7 fullbacks on the field and we'll run the ball. I can be in spread and I can torch you.
You know these numbers better than I do, probably. 90% adjusted completion percentage. Have we ever had one of those? Like 90%?
90%, especially for 43 pass attempts.
43 pass attempts, 2 uncatchable passes on those.
The only thing I want to say
is 86% unadjusted, right? 86% is where he finished the game. I mean, it basically was all that fourth quarter. Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown, the combination's lethal when they're playing well.
I'm going to get in trouble with Indianapolis Colts fans and probably Baltimore fans when I say this, but the Colts have a tendency of that defense recently against really good teams have a tendency, especially on like Monday night or Sunday night football, of not looking very good.
Let's hope it doesn't happen in San Francisco in 2 weeks. This was I won't say that. I probably get in trouble for telling the truth. I won't do that.
Go figure.
Telling the truth is like, or humor. You want to go to an early grave. Try making jokes this day and age. Like, no more jokes. I'm not doing that anymore
Can't
either.
do it.
Rookie of the week, Kadarius Toney, the Florida Gator, who I could not believe for the first 3 games of the year. I go, where is the guy that I watched all those years at Florida where nobody could tackle that guy? You can't tell me that the SEC is that different from the NFL, and now the last couple of weeks we've seen it from Kadarius Toney of the Giants, right?
And like, you don't see, and I hope this continues throughout his career, because what every team needs is a Kadarius Toney, a guy who's going to take a 5-yard slant, a 5-yard hitch, a screen, whatever, and just go.
This is my 4th podcast in a row I've had my phone ring during the podcast.
Listen, bro,
We're all scrambling to turn our phones
I've
off
done
now.
a few hundred shows with Schefter. I can't remember one show where his phone didn't ring. So now you're in the club.
Yeah.
Now you're in the club. You got to wear that like a badge of honor.
There you go. All right, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying something about Kadarius Toney, and the main conclusion is that he's very good. So that's my Kadarius Toney take.
How about his teammate? We finally saw from Kyle Pitts too. I'm like, where's Kyle Pitts? How come they have? And basically, the answer I think has been put him at wideout.
Yeah, and like he's able to like not just like just play him out there. He's can play out there. Like he can play out there.
Yes.
And now you can just do so much with him, and you're getting good. Like, defenses are responding to you because they're saying, what is this guy? Do I play nickel with lighter personnel in the field? Do I play base with heavier personnel? Because he is a tight end, and that screws the defense every time.
Would you take a tight end that early? You're team president. It's your pick. Let's just say that you're the Falcons team president, and you got Matt Ryan in a situation where we don't really know where his career goes from here. All these young quarterbacks, and there was a lot of them to choose from. But to go tight end there, would you have done it?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
I wouldn't. I would have whichever one of the quarterbacks I liked, I would have taken.
That seems to make sense, right? Especially new coach, bring him in behind Matt Ryan, give him a couple years to get.
I probably would have taken Fields, honestly.
Would you have?
Yeah.
What'd you like about Fields?
I just thought he had freakish raw talent, and more, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. We're seeing that the guys that maybe weren't the best players or the most perfect passers in college, if they have the raw talent, can be taught. And Josh Allen has been taught how to throw the football. Josh Allen went to the quarterback gurus, of which there's 100 of them right now, but they're teaching these guys how to play. So if you have, it's like taking a guy that can hit a golf ball 450 yards, but he has no idea if you can teach that guy how to hit it straight, that's one thing. If you've got a guy that hits it 250 yards and straight as an arrow all day, you can't teach him to hit it 450 yards. Yeah. You got a chance to go the other way, right? So anyway, all right. A couple other young players that come up big. Elijah Vera Tucker with the Jets, right? He's been playing really, really well up there. Tristan Wirfs is still continuing this just torrid pace of what he's been able to do. I watched Puna Ford. I was like, God, I didn't know Puna Ford was that good. Well, he was our top-rated guy.
I've never seen you read a rundown in my life until today. Let me just be the first to say
No, I always enjoy it because I never get to see this stuff.
We'll do Sunday Night Football. He won't look at the rundown. We do a podcast on a Thursday afternoon. He's nose deep in the rundown.
I'm curious.
He wants you to get to your golf outing as soon as possible.
I appreciate that. Sun's going down earlier and earlier.
TJ Watt, he's right on the list. I'm doing them, so I'm paying attention to that one. And so there you go. So let's go into just a little bit on the Kansas City Chiefs after watching that. Is this deadly? Are we seeing something that is a solution to stopping these guys? If you make them go 15 plays, do they lose their mojo a little bit?
It's funny because the Bills on Sunday night play cover 2, rush 4. No blitzing.
The whole game.
We're just going to stay back, quarters, cover 2, keep 2 safeties deep, and we're going to force you to just, like you said, 15-play drives and stuff like that. But the funny thing is, the week before they play the Eagles and hammer them, the Eagles are a cover 2 team. But the Eagles only got players.
That's the point.
Buffalo can rush 4, and you saw Greg Russo, who's a rookie, make plays in the backfield. They have a whole bunch of players now. They've gotten so much better on the defensive line. They can go and get you when they're just rushing 4, and now they obviously have a great back end with Micah Hyde and Teron Johnson and Trey White that they can force you down. And if you hold the ball for too long, now you're getting pressure up the middle. So it was forcing Mahomes outside, and then the Kansas City tackles just couldn't handle it.
I think that's the point, is that the strategy, to answer your question, is that the book is out, but you have to have the players to do it. And now who has the players? The Chargers have the players to do it. The Bills have the players to do it. The Bucs have the players to do it. We saw that in the Super Bowl. So if you have this ability to get pressure, and they are getting pressure. Like if you go watch that game, Buffalo is getting in Mahomes' face, and he has nobody open. And so then he starts scramble drilling. How often do you see him just hold the ball too long? They make him pause on his first read, then he pauses on his second, then he's getting hit, and then you have issues starting to form for this team. So I think Andy Reid will have some solutions coming, but there's no doubt these teams with the players can cause real issues for them.
I thought they wasted opportunities in that game because if you go back to the Philadelphia game, Kansas City ran the football. They ran it great. And they got those interior 3 guys, and even Brown, is a big stud that can run block. But so then they ran the ball. So, okay, great. So now you got that going for you. And then off of that came the RPO game. So that's all they did, really. So Philly played 2 deep safeties. So they ran the ball, but they were averaging like 7 yards a carry. So you tend to stay with something when you're averaging. Whereas Buffalo was holding them to 3 yards a carry, and they were getting to 3rd and 4. And so they didn't feel like they could stay with that running game, and they never got to the RPO game. They never went from running game to RPO. Now all you're doing is trying to throw exciting plays into cover 2. Well, I mean, the 2 safeties were sitting back there, Poyer and Hyde, and they were just going, come on, Tyreek, I'm 25 yards down here, baby. You see how fast you can get here.
And they're damn good players back there. Those are
really
damn good
defense,
players
man.
back there at safety. Right
Yeah,
there.
they are. It was one thing I missed in the game is I really wanted the interaction of those guys and how they come down and they cover for each other or they disguise and go back the other way. They do really cool things in the secondary. Then I got to see none of it. They just sat back there. It was like so boring.
What are you looking at when you're doing these games? Like you have obviously monitors in front of you with replays, but like the play starts, and I mean I've coached football for a long time. The play starts and I'm staring at the ball because it's a shiny object. Like, are you able to
He ain't
kind of
looking
move
there.
your eyes?
He ain't looking there anywhere but. That's been my experience.
My feeling is that Al watches the ball.
Right. Okay.
And so does every fan. And so, don't tell anybody this, but I really have the easiest job in the world. Seriously, if everybody,
he's lying.
you ever see what a magician does? A magician goes, and then he pulls the rabbit out of his hat over here, right? Look over here, and then you pull. So everybody is watching one thing, and I'm watching the rest of it. And people go, Guy, how did you see that? I goes, I don't know. I'm a great analyst. I just see things, I have great vision. I see all 22 players. No, you don't. It's like batting in baseball. You're out there guessing, is this going to be a fastball? Is this going to be a curveball? So I'm watching from behind the line of scrimmage because the first step of the guard or the offensive lineman, you know what it is. It's either they're pulling this way, they're either going – or it's outside zone, or it's play action off of it. It's one of the two things. And the minute if it's a run, I just stay with that view. If it's a pass, now I'm pre-snap the secondary. I'm trying to stay with that 1 second, get right to behind it, and then the minute it's back to a pass, I want to look down the field. So, and usually Fred Godelli does a great job of sort of watching the tackles. So if there's something significant, if we get a tackle replay, a lot of times it's Freddie go, hey, we should comment on this. So
you start from the end zone, and then if it's not a run, you'll be willing to change camera angles. If it is a run, you're staying with the end zone.
If it's a run, I'm staying right there and watching it there. It's the best view. If it's a pass, then I'm looking up at the field.
That's interesting
because I want to see what the secondary is. So. With the coverage, and I mean, Pittsburgh is going to be the same way. So Pittsburgh does a lot of, whoever's down plays back, and whoever's back plays down, and they would prefer to play their safeties really almost at linebacker level to try and pick off something. And then they take one of their lesser guys, one of their lesser safeties, and run him from linebacker back to safety. Yeah. So Minkah Fitzpatrick can, come down and steal one somewhere,
Yeah.
So
and Al calls the whole game from the monitor?
I don't know if he does the whole game. He does a good bit of it. And if I were doing play-by-play, I would too. So because what you want to do is what's the fan watching?
That's it.
What is if he's watching what I am watching, then we're in good shape.
Yeah. So, something interesting you made me think about with your Kansas City point, to go back for a second, is that so if it comes back to them having to run teams, especially these good teams, out of that style of defense, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out, and really he's not had a great year. I mean, he's had some fumbles that have really cost him. The Baltimore game should have been in the bag. If you think about it, they're marching down the field. He coughs it up late. He's had a couple other fumbles that I can think of too. But if he's hurt, how did they run teams out of it? I don't think they have enough talent in that backfield to carry it that way. Do you? Who do you see behind them they could do it with?
I mean, Williams is okay. He's okay. But it's a decent question. And Patrick is not really a runner, right? Like
you're not going to run him on like exactly what we talked about with Josh Allen running between the tackles. That's not Patrick Mahomes. Like you can run a zone read and get outside. But no between the tackles runs by Mahomes. No, they'll never do that.
Yeah, I don't see that either. This week we have Pittsburgh, and so I was watching I watched all the tape, but I was watching the last game particularly close, and they kind of look like Pittsburgh to me again. And I know that that was Denver, but Denver has a good defense. But what I was thinking was, what would make you get off to a really slow start? And one of the things that I think would make you get off to a slow start is if you had a new offensive line. I don't know who any of these guys are hardly on the offensive line. I mean, do you ever heard of Dan Moore, Kevin Dotson? I knew from last year. Kendrick Green is the center, still wearing 53, which is ballsy, They're bouncing there with Pouncey's number. Trey Turner and Chooks Okorafor, who's, I knew him. But I could foresee if you had a rookie running back and you had 2 rookies on the offensive line and you're playing nobody in preseason, is it possible it would take a little bit of time for that to come together, right?
And I think like the Denver game, if you're a Steelers fan, you're hoping this is who we are.
This
like
is the real
It's not
Steelers.
the first 4 weeks of the season. Like, this is who we are, and we can actually run the football and hopefully give Ben time. Ben has kind of this past 2 years since the injury has decided he doesn't really want to spend a lot of time in the pocket. So you need to, so the offensive line can get away with it to a certain degree because he's getting rid of the football, and you can't like see a lot of negatives. But in the run game is where you see the issues in the first 4 weeks. So the running back is very good. Najee Harris is a great running back. So if this is the offensive line, if they've gelled in these 4 weeks, maybe don't write off Pittsburgh just yet.
I'm kind of there, but Ben looks slow. He never looked fast, but he looked slow.
But he was always fast enough to create a second throw point. And if you look back at his career and some of the greatest moments, playoff moments, Super Bowl run moments, so much of it comes from him buying an extra second and a half.
Sometimes it was him stiff-arming
that's
somebody in the pocket. It wasn't necessarily escaping,
Yeah, but he had enough to break that tackle and get away. And if you watch him play this year, he doesn't have enough to break that tackle. He looks like a tree trunk back there, and he just kind of goes down. So that's my big concern when it comes
Which
to
is
that.
why, last year, I don't have the numbers this year, but last year he led the league in fastest average time to throw because he just doesn't. I don't want to say he's afraid because I don't know.
He's coming off the elbow injury.
Coming off the elbow injury,
right?
He just doesn't want to take hits anymore. He's 38, 37 years old. I mean, I get it. Like no one wants to take hits forever, and it's kind of putting the offense, especially in the passing game, in a rough situation where, we talk about how you have to create explosive plays to win games. Well, a lot of how do you create explosive plays schematically is with post routes, with over routes, all these deep stuff off play action and stuff like that. They don't want to run play action, and they don't want to throw a lot of these deep post routes because when you throw a post route, you got to stick around back there.
Well, the other part and this may be a question for a former coach as much as anything, is I look at like, if you're going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Ben is not going to be the guy that's going to carry you all the way to the finish line, right? Najee Harris now is going to be the focal point, I think. And Najee's good. He's their leading receiver as far as catches are concerned. I think he started off averaging about 3 yards per carry. He's up to about 5 almost now over the past couple of weeks. So I think the offensive line's coming into play. But this team also runs more draws than anybody. I mean, because they're in shotgun. Ben wants to be in shotgun. And it's okay, but if you're going to be a run-centric team, then there are at least quadruple the number of plays possible in the run game if you're under center than there is as a shotgun quarterback where you go, I want to run. There's got to be more than that, right?
Yeah. And I find they have, when I watched them this past couple of weeks, I find they have a lot of tells. Because, again, when you're in the gun, you have the running back next to you. He's going to have to cross your face, right? That's how a shotgun running game works. So you don't, when you're either in the pistol where he's behind you or you're under center where the running back is right behind you, you can go in either direction. So now when you're in the gun, he's got to cross your face.
Or run a draw.
Those
are the two.
So, if he's lined up to the left and the tight end is is lined up also to the left, they have 2 plays. If the tight end is opposite the running back, they have 2 plays.
So you don't need to tell. They tell by formation.
And they're not doing a lot of. And the funny thing is, they hired Matt Canada, who is this, college. He's been with the Steelers for I think 2-3 years, coaching the quarterbacks and whatnot. He's a college offensive coordinator who's doing wild stuff at LSU, at Pitt, at NC State, at Maryland, I think, where there is so much action before the snap. You're under center, and then there's a jet motion, and then he stops and he comes back, and then a second guy comes, and then the left tackle goes to right tackle.
They were doing a lot of that. They did that in this game too.
They did it against the Broncos.
They did it in this game.
And you didn't see, and then because Ben doesn't want to be under center, that takes away that whole situation. So like you said, yeah, they did it a bit against the Broncos, but you hadn't seen a lot of that going forward.
Well,
so,
they truly come out in their first 2 plays are under center, and I go, hey, it's the new Steelers. So they have 2 good runs. They go down, it's 3rd and 1, and they go shotgun. I was like, well, what's the point? If you're going to run it to 2nd or 3rd and 1, and then you might as well be 3rd and 4. There's no difference, right?
Have you ever asked him why? Why doesn't he like to be under center?
Because I think it's the movement. It's the drop back. I mean, you can obviously catch the ball, and at a glance, he's going to have some idea of the coverage and what's going on, and the handoffs are simple. Even stretch runs for guys that are not as mobile are hard work, But I mean, that the way they're built right now, like I think this left tackle, this Dan Moore, is a very athletic guy. He could reach, he could stretch, they could do things. Kendrick Green's got a little bit, Okorafor's got a little bit.
He's a super athlete, Kendrick Green.
Yeah. So I mean, there are good. And they got Freiermuth now, who can do some things in the passing game. But it's a young football team, but I don't think that less mobile quarterbacks or older quarterbacks like to be under center because they're not pretty looking dropping back anymore, and they have trouble reaching some of the run plays. That's what I think it is.
It's true. And you can honestly watch it sometimes on film where it looks like they're going 110% to reach the handoff there.
Oh, it's brutal. Like you're going to pull a hamstring to get there. Yeah.
Remember how Peyton used to he was the greatest actor in the world, right? But he used to he would chug his butt off to get to the stretch handoff.
But it also made for great play action because he would be diving for the guy and then pull it out and throw the football, so
play action more effective under center than it is in shotgun. It seems like it would.
Oh, no question, because the running back is so much farther downhill.
Right.
Because now if you stand back in the backfield, shotgun, you hand it off, you got time.
Yeah.
You got time. You stand back there, and this guy, you're going hard stretch outside zone, and you go, I think it's a play action fake. I'm just going to sit back. Boom. Mm-hmm. And they hit this thing for 20 yards off tackle. And so we were just having the discussion upstairs about Najee Harris, and of course there's great pain anytime you talk about drafting a running back in the first round. I'm like, oh, no, we're not doing this again. But so it is an interesting discussion point because he is the leading receiver as far as just catches. I think he had 14 catches against the Bengals in the game the other day.
Look, I have him on my fantasy team, so I have no complaints. I have no
PPR, you're in good shape, man.
Good.
There you go.
Does he look a little like Le'Veon to you?
Yes, he does. I agree. He has the patience of Le'Veon, which helps him in all those shotgun runs kind of things where they turn around and just hand him the ball. But I think what he does best is it's some of those duo blocks, the double teams and the linebacker gets stacked behind, because he is patient, and instead of picking a hole right away, he'll go right into the butt of those double teams, and that linebacker gets stuck, and then he can outrun them either way. Yeah,
and that was a run that I didn't see a lot on tape until the Broncos game.
Yeah,
and then you saw them come in with the receiver. I want to say it was Juju, who I think is out for the season. But
this one number 15, I forgot his name.
Deontay Johnson, I think?
No, it's not Deontay Johnson. Adams, maybe something like that.
No, Deontay's 18.
Right. Okay.
Cody White one time came looping in. This is after Juju got hurt. Came looping in and destroyed a guy.
That was a big block. But they hadn't shown that much until the Broncos game, and I think that could be a really good run for them going forward.
You know who is the toughest guy on the Pittsburgh Steelers offense? If you saw the 2 plays I saw, you'll know right away. Ray McLeod. There was a tip ball from Ben. Yeah. It looked like the defensive tackle who tipped it was also going to catch it. Ray McLeod was coming. He was going to take a quick screen. He's number 14. And he sees the ball tipped. He sees this defensive tackle getting ready to get it. He went flying full speed, head first in there to try and get this ball. He has this most massive collision. This guy can't weigh 170 pounds. And he has this massive collision with this defensive tackle, and the ball falls out harmlessly. I go, that was a fantastic play. That's a tough-minded guy. I go, but still 170 pounds. This guy ain't blocking anybody. In the middle of the next quarter, he comes flying down on some. I mean, it was a safety came sprinting out of center field. The guy who knocked out Juju, who knocked him out, comes sprinting in, and Ray, Juju and Ray, they got too many names. That comes flying in, and I mean, this was one of the biggest hits of the entire game. These two guys going at it. So there are guys that they have, that Cody White and Ray. These guys will block. But it's still not a run-first offense, even though they ran it more.
But it's weird because they kind of want they're living in two worlds and not enough of one or not enough of both. I don't know. It doesn't look pretty sometimes, and that's scary going forward if you're a Steelers fan.
They're probably figuring it out on the fly. I mean, last year and really early this year, they used a lot of that just Big Ben, raise up and throw it to these receivers, get it to Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Juju, just flip it to them, and that becomes the run game. I think a lot of people thought because Big Ben's not as comfortable pushing it down the field, that's why they're doing that. But if Harris becomes a factor, and so they can take Harris and that quick passing game to where it's both as opposed to just one, now you may start to have something, and Big Ben doesn't have to push it down the field.
And you just hope that they can create something off of having a good run game.
Yeah.
Being like, hey, we can play action and get the ball downfield. Because right now, all their big plays are all, hey, Chase Claypool, go make a play.
Yeah.
Like run down the sideline and make a play, kind of like the Bengals and Jamar Chase are doing right now. Like,
But you know who really played well is Deontay Johnson.
Oh yeah.
Deontay Johnson had he had more drops in one game, we called, I think, than I had in season sometimes. I mean, this guy, it was getting cringeworthy to watch it. You just got to where you knew this year he's catching everything. He caught a bomb in the game. He's made some really dynamic catch and run kind of plays, and that's who he is. If they can just get him the ball in the middle of the field and let him break, he's not Kadarius Toney, but he's not bad. He definitely has a chance to get some of that done. It's interesting for me though on the defensive side. I really don't think Keith Butler gets quite enough attention. He does some really clever things with, like, they set up to make slot blitzes, sort of like they did with Mike Hilton, really look like slot blitzes. So they come out, and you could see, because the offensive linemen are still getting in their stance, and all of a sudden the slot guy will come ripping down to the line of scrimmage, and then the quarterbacks are reacting and pointing, and the offensive linemen are pointing. I'm like, he ain't coming. But what he does do is he gets himself out of position a little bit, and then it looks like man coverage, and the outside corner will flip like he's in man coverage, and all of a sudden you go, okay, then he's going to force him into a quick out, and that trap is sitting there. Now, they had 2 or 3, I thought, really brilliant trap coverages, and they didn't hit on any of them. But now you got a backup quarterback coming in here this week. You know, they could get one.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Geno Smith game.
No doubt.
Geno Smith is going in there trying to win a contract for next year. And honestly, I like Geno Smith.
Geno was good the other night.
He was good.
He was.
I mean, you take away the pass where the receiver fell
he got
down.
hooked and
Tyler
then,
Lockett. Yeah, he fell down.
He fell down.
It looked like it was going to be a completion.
Yep.
And if you go before that, he went about 8 for 8 right down the field. And it's not like people want to draw this back to the Jets, Geno Smith, but he's in year 8 now? I mean, he's a vet. This is a veteran quarterback who's learned a lot.
You could see him. He called that whole game at the line of scrimmage. It was kind of fun watching on TV because he was just like barking them out.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, at least he was studying this week. He wasn't on the golf course all week.
For sure. And what a great backup for them to have because you run the exact same offense.
Hey, 98 yards. You go 98 yards against that defense anytime, anywhere, because they were out of the game. But for, if he doesn't go 98 yards on this drive, this game's over. Zip right down the field.
Yeah.
I thought he played excellent, and I think the interesting thing is, like, with the Seahawks is, like, we want to see, what is a new offensive coordinator going to do to this team? I think you're going to see what a new offensive coordinator does with Geno Smith rather than Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson kind of
going to do his thing.
He's going to do his thing.
Yeah.
That's Russell Wilson's game, and that's it. So I think we've all loved this Sean McVay offense. It runs itself basically, And I think they can do some really interesting stuff to keep Geno Smith on time and accurate, and they could very easily win a few games with Geno Smith as their quarterback.
The AFC North, I don't think has ever been as interesting as it is right now. There's all those teams, and honestly, Pittsburgh may be one of the least entertaining of them, given that you have the Bengals and all these young stars and the way Burrows, they should have just beat Green Bay. And then you look at Cleveland. Cleveland just had the Chargers all over the ropes. There's no way they should have lost that game. And the way that they did lose it, if you go back and watch it, was all the fourth downs. I mean, how aggressive were they on fourth down? 4th and 8, they're going for it. They're in their own territory, their own 40-yard line, they're going for it. They were ruthlessly aggressive. And that's normally Stefanski's game, and they used it against them to go beat him.
But you know who did that for a whole year and won a Super Bowl? Philadelphia.
Doug Peterson.
Philadelphia. It was like a freak year. It was like from the beginning of the year on, he just kept going for it on fourth down. I want to say they're like 80% or some insane number. And then the very next year, law of averages caught up with him. And the next year is like they couldn't convert one to save their lives. And all of a sudden now he sucks as a coach, and we got to get rid of him.
It was a lesson to me, though, in how many extra opportunities you can steal. Because if it's one thing to do it one time, but if you do it 5 times in the second half of the game, you just gave yourself 5 extra third downs, basically. 5 extra opportunities. And if you're hitting 4 out of 5 or whatever they ended up hitting, felt like 5 out of 5, it can put you over the top, especially if you're down 14 like they were.
And doesn't it feel like there's always this one team each year that, like the Eagles in 2017, that just there's a – I mean, you hate this call like that. We are PFF, the numbers guys, but like there's a magic to them, and like that stuff is kind of real. And all the stuff that Staley has said at press conferences about it, they're so impressive in what they're doing, and it just feels like there's a little Chargers magic going on.
All the games that they typically lose, they've been winning this year. It doesn't mean it'll go on forever, but a little bit of what I mean. In all our preseason shows, I used to come in here. I love tweaking our guys anyway. So it was the word on Justin Herbert was always regression. I was like, he's going to regress. He's a rookie quarterback, and he's going to regress and go back. He's not going to be, they'll wait 2 years in a row. We see it all the time. I go, okay, but what if he doesn't? What if that was the worst? Right. What if that was the worst we're going to see out of him, and he got all his rookie growing pains out of the way to be rookie of the year?
Yeah. Right.
And I think that's kind of happening here, that he's kind of, almost and we're all going to be judged by those hardest moments, when something that was always Bob Costas's line that I loved. They don't pay me what they pay me for when things are easy. When it really hits the fan, that's the reason they're paying me. So I try to act like, okay, I'm getting ready to show you now why that you guys pay me all this money and why my agents will be calling at the end of the show, right? And I think that when you begin to take on that personality and you have a little house money, if you've won 2 or 3 games with what you've done, and as a quarterback you've pulled it out of the hat, and you've tuckered it a few times or you've hit the game-winning field goal. Say you missed one, big deal. And I think that a little bit Herbert's in that position now. It's like, let's go, coach. What the heck, man? Let's give it a shot here.
And Austin Ekeler's a problem, too.
He's a major problem.
He's just a problem. Every time I watch them play, he's got something athletically that is of another caliber. And he's always doing all those athletic challenges where he wants to go up against Olympians and jump.
I saw the one-handed pull. It looks like our upstairs guys. I'm like,
squat more.
What do you guys? I go, you're Neil. You're married. Why do you don't have to get the girl anymore? It's okay. Yeah. Let it go. Have a cupcake in the morning. You'll be all right.
But he's every time, and he does it out of the backfield, catching it. He does it in the run game, and there's a natural leverage that he plays with. And everybody wants the 6'3" guy or the 6'4" guy, but he is up underneath people's pads naturally, and they can't get him down. I mean, how many times do you see him, and it's a lane, and most guys, I think, would gain 6 and get tackled, but he's gaining 6, and he's picking up steam after 6, and they're getting hands on him, but they're not getting him down, and then he's making safeties miss and driving those things in for touchdowns. He is a major difference maker for them, and that's just what he's been all year.
I was afraid for Herbert this year because they bring in Joe Lombardi to run the offense, who was with the Saints for so long. And I was like, is this the type of offense? Do you want to put Justin Herbert and that arm in the Drew Brees offense, like, does that really make sense? And for him to be doing what he's doing in this offense and using Ekeler like Darren Sproles maybe used back in the day, I love this offense. I was wrong about Herbert when coming out of Oregon, like a lot of people were, though I was probably very loudly wrong about it. However, he's maybe the most fun player to watch in the league because that arm is from another planet. And I'm gonna get the Buffalo fans in my mentions right now, but I think he has more control over that big arm than Josh Allen does. Josh Allen is a generational player. I'm not saying he's not a good player. He's generational in my opinion. But Herbert can control that arm with that unbelievable arm strength that we don't see very often.
And he has the run skills to go with it too. They haven't even really tapped into that. You do get the feeling that
they will.
There's going to come a time when they really need it. Like I do think people are going to watch that game the other night, and they're going to say, I never really thought about using Lamar Jackson's plays on occasion, right? And when I'm in a big game and a big moment, and I haven't shown that I'm going to go power with two backside offensive linemen leading my quarterback, because now that extra blocker that we all know about when the quarterback runs the ball that's a different thing. And if you're only pulling it out 2 or 3 times a game, like I always say, if I had Joe Namath as my quarterback, I would still run 1 read option per game, because you got to keep that backside in from killing the rest of your run game. And if he's never thinking about it, then your running back's at a severe disadvantage over most of the guys in the league.
This next generation of quarterbacks is making football so much more fun.
So much better.
I mean, when you watch these guys and then you go back and watch the traditional guys, it's like
how
watching. Did we do this for that long?
It's like watching. I went back. My dad played on the national championship team at Kentucky in 1958, and I'd never seen. Somebody pulled out the footage of this thing. I mean, you would have thought you were watching 6th grade basketball. They're going down, 2-hand set shots. They're walking the ball down the floor. I'm like, that was basketball? I go, really? I go, yeah, that was the highest end of it right there.
but the floodgates are off now. Like we're never going back to that old brand of football. Like there may be a few that hang on. Like Tom Brady's not going anywhere as long as he's playing his game. He's so smart in his ability to pick apart defenses. But like when I watch Big Ben and I watch Josh Allen, or if I watch Big Ben and I watch Justin Herbert, like just the comparison between
Kyler Murray,
right? I mean,
Lamar Jackson.
Kyler's got Mike Vick in him. Like they can't touch Kyler Murray. To me, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Mike Vick are the only 3 that are of that caliber. That are of that. I mean, they're like slot wide receivers that can also run around and throw the football. That's a different degree of it. But those other guys, man, Herbert can run. Burrow, like even Joe Burrow, I think is a major sleeper. Does he do it as much now after the knee injury? Should he do it at all, given the shots he continues to take? Maybe not. But it's all these young guys that can do that. And it's just the whole offense looks completely different because.
I think the NFL screwed themselves for 20, 25 years being like everybody has to be Joe Montana. Because everyone is off the Bill Walsh tree, and therefore we need Joe Montana and kind of to a certain degree Steve Young. Steve Young could run around and make plays, but everyone has to be Joe Montana. So we keep going and looking for Joe Montanas. I don't know if you guys know
anymore.
this. I don't know if you guys know this, but Joe Montana's, there's one Joe Montana ever, right? So there's
you don't
one
have to
Peyton
remind me.
There's one Peyton Manning ever. There's one Drew Brees, Tom Brady, et cetera, et cetera. And like you said, we're allowing these guys to come into the league and sometimes fail. Like Josh Allen failed for 2 years. Kyler Murray failed for 2 years. But what they always had was his athletic ability. So now they've seen the game now 2 years. Now they have off seasons where they're rewatching tape and doing all that stuff. And then you compare that athleticism, that arm talent that Josh Allen has, that Kyler Murray has, that Lamar Jackson has, that Patrick Mahomes has, with an actual understanding of defenses and stuff, and we're seeing just fun football all the time.
The other part of it, and I think we'd be remiss, and I'll probably somehow die on the sword saying this, but it really is when quarterbacks of color have been given a full opportunity to play from Pee Wee on up. I mean, I can remember talking about it with Jeff Blake, who was the quarterback of the Bengals. And he wasn't like bitter about it or anything. And I said, why did you go to East Carolina? I think it was East Carolina, right? And he goes, I got scholarship offers everywhere, but nobody would let me play quarterback. And he didn't try and say it was like anything racially or anything like that, but it was just that's the way it was kind of thing, you know? And now from Pee-wee to junior high school to college, people are looking for those Kyler Murrays, you know? They're looking for Lamar Jacksons. And we've seen them now. This is not a theory anymore. We've seen them be the MVP. We've seen them win championships. We've seen athletic quarterbacks make it work. And I think the stigma is pretty much gone now. I when I was watching the game the other day, I just remember thinking, these quarterbacks are so much more, and it was watching Josh Allen, so it's not a black-white thing or anything, but they're so much more athletic than they've ever been, and the running game portion of it is so much. I mean, he's 237 pounds. I mean, the DBs that are tackling him are 195 pounds sometimes.
They're terrified.
I mean,
they're terrified when he gets a full
nobody was
head.
ever terrified of Johnny Unitas running downfield. Trust me.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah, don't do that to me.
Let me ask you this, because it's interesting to see how far we've come in what's it been, 4 years? Lamar Jackson fell to 32.
Unbelievable.
Pick 32, and people said it was a bad pick at pick 32. It was like a reach of a pick at pick 32. If Lamar Jackson came out this year, where would he
Heisman
go?
Trophy winner Lamar Jackson.
A Heisman Trophy winner, where do you think he would be picked?
That's got to be top 5.
I would think.
And I think there were issues with him to a certain degree with the accuracy. It wasn't perfect all the time. Kind of like Justin Herbert. It wasn't perfect all the time.
Josh
Allen. But it's like the everything else is. And like you said, there's a lot of running quarterbacks. There aren't a lot of Lamar Jacksons out there.
Just one other team I wanted to bring up, and because I think they're the talk of the town a bit, and that is the Dallas Cowboys. I personally am of the belief that if you're going to really make a run at winning a Super Bowl in these days, you have to be one of those teams capable of scoring 30 points, and then you have to figure out on the defense what you're going to be. But now PFF has the Dallas Cowboys back as the number 1 offensive line in football. And I don't know if it goes a whole lot beyond Zach Martin and Tyron Smith are healthy. And when they're healthy, Connor Williams has played well. But when those two hammers are healthy, it is just a different football team. And whether they're giving it to Ezekiel Elliott or Tony Pollard, it doesn't seem to matter. And Dak seems to have come back just angry almost, like making up for lost time kind of thing and slinging it. They've got a chance.
Mm-hmm. I think you paid Dak because of his mind. You know what I mean?
100%.
Because at the time, you couldn't bet on his body. I mean, he's coming off one of the most gruesome injuries that we've seen in a long time, and somebody who mobility, even when he is a passer, mobility is a big part of it. But he, to me, is somebody who makes the rest of the team feel like they can win the game.
He's the coolest guy in the room.
He's the coolest guy in the room.
He is.
And
I mean,
when you get to spend time around him,
a lot. We
we
get to spend a lot of time around him, and not everybody does, obviously. But if you watched Hard Knocks, I mean, he wasn't even practicing, and he's in playing cards with the guy that's, you know, the equipment manager, the guy that's directing traffic outside.
Who he is, man.
Right? He doesn't care. He's the one that they're going to gravitate towards. So when he wasn't there, everybody pointed to the defense, and they struggled on defense for sure last year. But Dak not being there is a different thing. Zeke is a great guy and a great player and all that. But Dak is the guy that, you know, like everything's going the wrong way here, and they're only looking at one guy. Like, okay, what are we doing, right?
Yeah.
And when your quarterback delivers like that, your confidence as a team just grows. It's like, dude, we got this. Don't worry about it. We're down by 20. We got this. We got this.
I got to give major props on that one to Jerry Jones for doing the right, for realizing that, no, I got to pay him. I got to pay him.
It cost him another $10 million to wait per year, but at one time he could have easily had him for $30 million. No question about it.
But he paid him when it was the hardest to pay him, when you didn't know if he was going to be able to play again or what he would look like when he did play again. And then everyone's going, you can't play him week 1. He didn't practice all preseason. We haven't seen him on the field.
You're going to go. Yeah, the shoulder thing in preseason,
the shoulder thing too.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to put him on the field against Tom Brady in that pass rush, the first game of the year, and he goes throw for throw with them. I mean, they could have very easily beaten Tom Brady and spoiled that welcome home party there to Tampa, and he's continued that, if not gotten better. And how about their defense? Like, you hit on the offensive line, but their defense. Coach Quinn coming over in the second chapter, he's creating Parsons is a linebacker. Now Parsons is a pass rusher, and he's been awesome. And you've been telling me all along they really wanted a cornerback, and what a gem they end up finding in Parsons.
So many times. How many times when we watched the draft that the guy, they were like, oh, I can't believe it. Oh, shit, I got to take this guy. And he ends up being the rock star, right? I mean, you've just seen it.
My thing with Dallas, and this is maybe a galaxy brain theory here, but
I like those.
So Michael Gallup is, let's say, their third receiver, though he does play a lot of kind of like what we call like the X receiver, like isolated and in one-on-one situations. But he's like their third receiver. He's a very good player. Michael Gallup is a very, very good football player. His injury and him not being there the past few weeks is going to allow them to move forward and become a better team, because what it's done is they've found that they can play with two tight ends on the field, with Dalton Schultz and the other tight end whose name I forget, with Blake Jarwin. And they can go downhill with you. Like, you talk about the offensive line, you put those two tight ends next to each other, they can bully you. So now they can play, and this is kind of a theory that I'm kind of tweaking with, is the ability to play two offenses if you're one team. Dallas can say, hey, when Gallup comes back, we got this spread, we got Cooper, we got Lamb, we got Gallup. You can't play one-on-one against us, plus we have Dak Prescott. And then we can say, we can also bully you. Put the two tight ends on the field, get that offensive line going downhill. I think that is so tough to beat going forward.
And how about Diggs, too? I can't watch Trayvon Diggs play and not let my brain go to Jalen Ramsey. They're physically intimidating. You could bring them inside. Now we're seeing Jalen Ramsey play different things, and he's gotten beat a couple of times. I understand that. But he has such great ball skills out there. It reminds me of his brother. He's one of the best receivers in football. And quarterbacks think about that, right? They think about throwing at somebody who thinks like a wide receiver and believes they're going to go catch the ball. They don't want to throw interceptions.
Richard Sherman
Correct.
was Dion was the same way.
Correct.
Like, he did not consider that ball to be the wide receiver's ball. That ball is my ball.
Correct. So he plays with that mindset of every ball in the air is going to be my ball. You know who else does? Kyle Hamilton at Notre Dame will be a top 10 pick.
Guy, I love him.
You know what they always seem to be, too, is former wide receivers or guys with wide receiver backgrounds that wind up getting placed at DB, and they're going, now the ball's in the air, and you don't think I'm going to go catch it? I mean, I've talked to Kyle Hamilton about that. He's like, 50-50 balls aren't 50-50 balls. Those are 100-0 balls. Those are my footballs. And I think you see him physically wear out wide receivers that are usually bigger, than the DBs, and all of a sudden they got Diggs lined up across from him. They're not wearing him down physically, and then his ball skills are just elite.
The other thing is that division now looks like it's not going to be that difficult for them to handle. I think it's a little like Buffalo now with the East, both Easts, if you will, or look like sort of one-man races at this point, short of something weird happening, which always can. But one final point, and we'll end on this. Does it feel a little bit like coaches are coaching slightly? They've only added one game to the schedule, right? They've only added one, but it's almost like the season feels longer,
way longer,
and it's only one game more
because it was already long.
It was already long, but I almost get the feeling now if a guy's hurt, whereas before they might just go, man, you got to go. What are you talking about? You're a pro athlete, you got to go. Now it's like, this is a long year. You know what? I could really use that guy healthy. Let me give him 2 weeks off here, and then we'll get him back. Gronk.
He's a perfect example. I think this injury right now it could wind up being the best thing that could have happened to Tampa. Because not only does Gronk look healthy again, he looks young again. Like, to start the year, I'm like, when is Gronk fast? Like, I'm not remembering him being fast. Even AB. AB looks like he's 20. I think that TB12 thing is permeating the building down there with Tampa. I think everybody is using it and learning from it. Like, in New England, it was in the visitors' locker room. In Tampa, I think it's the mainstay. I think everybody is subscribing to TB12.
But there's a real shortage of avocado juice down there in Tampa now. So if you're going to make a donation, you can. Yeah.
It feels like Gronk will make it to the play. Like, it's almost like there's maybe a strategy on the table of just keeping Gronk out or in a limited role until you get to playoff football and making sure he's right. Am I insane for even saying that?
But this was the thing in the NBA for a few years now about load management and all that stuff. Where hey, like we don't need to play 82 games here. Like we're gonna make the playoffs. I'm a star player. I need to rest, and we're realizing, just in general, in the world, the science has not come around, but we're seeing that you need to sleep sometimes.
Yeah,
you need to sleep and not run around and get into car crashes like all these NFL players are doing all the time. And I think also the NFL changing it and allowing you to put a player on IR for just 3 weeks.
It's great. It's a great rule.
It's perfect.
It's a great rule. It really
perfect.
is.
Yeah.
And they're allowing them to move people up and down, from the practice squad a lot more readily now and have a role. So
you brought up a point. I want to get this in real quick. You know what's really interesting? You mentioned sleep and like the importance of it. Notre Dame, when we meet with Coach Kelly up there every week, they have all the players wear these rings now where they monitor their sleep. So think about this. Like Michael Mayer is the best player he's from right around here. He's the best player on their team. He has the ring on his finger. So every night Coach Kelly knows, was he out late? What time did he get home? How much did he sleep? Like when he comes into the building, he's having breakfast in the building, Coach Kelly's going like, how are your 8 hours of REM sleep last night? Think about the level of data and details that these coaches now have over their whole roster. They know everything. He's like, Mike, we got 3 hours last night. We need to get you home a little early tonight.
All I
It's
know
at
is
another level, man.
If that were you, you'd have that ring on your roommate's finger. hey, I need you to sleep tonight. All right, how much? $20? Okay, go to sleep.
I don't think I'm ready to wear a ring yet, bro. Of any kind. Of any kind.
Guys, it was fun. I appreciate the time and effort. I count this as my hour off every week. I get to come down here and talk a little ball and have fun. But
yeah,
Seth, Jack, that was a great time.
I appreciate you costing me 7 G's at your fundraiser last night too.
But you didn't really bid on that, did you?
Oh, I did. You were up there. I'm never gonna let a family member. Were you at the thing?
I wasn't at the thing.
Okay. Cool in the gang. So you're doing the auctioneer before it, right? Going once, going twice. He's up there selling all these trips. So the Notre Dame, everything's going for about 10 range. I'll just say that. So he's up there doing it, and he's selling. It's a trip to Notre Dame, right? Trip to Notre Dame. Get this van, tickets, stay at the nice hotel I've always wanted to stay at. So I was like, it's great. I'll help you drive up the price. First guy goes 3 G's. I go 4, right? So then somebody quickly 5, 6. So I go 7. Somebody goes 8, right? So everyone in my section's celebrating. Okay, perfect. Somebody already said 8. We're done. I'm not touching anything else, right? The dude at 8 disappears into the darkness. Gone. Nobody can find him. Next thing I know, the auctioneer shows up. I'm in for 7 G's to a Notre Dame game. I already have to go up to work. I'm working the game, and I bought tickets for $7,000. So anybody out there even remotely wants to go for $700, I'll get me off the hook. So that charity night got expensive in a hurry, bro.
You really are as stupid as I am.
I really am. Genetics are strong.
That's very strong.
Yeah.
That's not good. I can't grow the beard, the little scruffy thing that you do. But
I can't either. Takes 2 of us.
We shall see you next week after another, who knows what we'll believe after. I always laugh. I'm like, whatever we know is a fact this week. The next week, well, that's out. We gotta rethink it now. So we'll see you next week.